The Hall of Mental Cultivation was the political center and residence of the emperor from the reign of the Yongjang Emperor until the fall of the Qing dynasty. Now, visitors can only stand in front of it, wondering what happened inside.
我不知道，
没事，能看。
希望吧。
现在还看不出来是嘉靖那年的哈。
应该是14，然后这是个4，然后但是我们就是想清这一片儿，但是这一片儿感觉不一定能清得出来。在《明实录》里边，它那个档案记载的是嘉靖16年新作养心殿成。
The Palace Museum initiated the first comprehensive renovation of the hall at the end of 2015, turning this tourist attraction into a site for academic research on architectural conservation. Zhang Dian is trying to figure out what was inscribed on the stone bricks by making rubbings.
好像是
尺度。
摇虎太棒了，竟然可以把它识别出来，我今天下午没白干。
The seemingly immortal Forbidden City has been standing in the heart of Beijing for 600 years. Time has watched dynasties rise and fall indifferently, but it seems to have a soft spot for this palace. However, no city can survive without people. What has supported the Forbidden City during the 600 years is not only bricks, stone and wood, but also generations of craftsmen's dedication and care. The Department of Construction Management was set up to administer renovation projects of the architectural heritage in the Palace Museum. The location of the Palace Museum means that Wang Hui has to get to work early to avoid getting stuck in the traffic jam during the morning rush hour. Wang joined the department when the Palace Museum instigated the grand renovation project in 2003. Now a core member of the team, he's supervising the renovation work on the Hall of Mental Cultivation.
这2天也没人喂它啊，就是有2天不喂啊，手一进来它自己全上来了。
There's a story behind the black roof of the building housing the department. In the spring of 1421, the Forbidden City, which was completed 97 days earlier, was struck by lightning and the 3 main buildings were burnt to ashes. Fire has always been the greatest threat to the palace. This courtyard was where the fire department was located. According to the 5 elements theory, the colour black represents water, and that's why the roof was made black. Wang Hui and Zhang Dian spend most of their time inside the hall.
看得清吗？嗯，
左二啊。
对，几，他想写那个带木字边的横，但是他写成了行走的行。
The renovation work poses countless challenges, but also brings them surprises and amazing discoveries.
这个梁的时候，
如果规矩的做法，或者说如果书上的，它一定应该上面还有一个，但是它现在这个是没有的。但是如果这个你不拆开，你肯定是不知道的。对。
The rear hall was the emperor's chamber, and the restorers found something that the ancient leaders never discovered.
这个就一个。
不是，不止一个呀。你那个肯定也不是望板钉。
哪个呀？
那边那个肯定不是望板钉。
这个。
Whoever was tasked with building this hall cut corners.
行。后殿的这个椽子呢，它直接钉到这个正脊领上了。像这种单领的脊，应该上边有一个扶脊木。
这个扶脊木的话，它的这个面是有一个一个的船窝的。这个船窝是要把船子给放进去，卡在上面。那现在的话，因为没有这个东西，所以这个船子就是扶搁在上面，然后靠钉子给它连着。
After the roof tiles were removed, the restorers realized that the wooden framework of the gabled sweeping roof was greatly simplified compared to a standard one, and didn't meet the requirements of royal residences at all.
咱这哪有啊？有。
我认为应该是嘉庆之后。
是吧？
对。
非常非常后期的做法。
嗨，我估计肯定也是国力衰弱的时候弄的这个。
对，你要是有钱，人家没必要，毕竟是皇宫里的东西，人没必要给你做成这样。
Bricks, stones, tiles, and wood are major components of traditional Chinese architecture. The technicians have checked more than 100,000 tiles since the project began more than a year ago, and made copies of inscriptions found on more than 10,000 tiles. These inscriptions open a new window for us to learn more about this palatial building.
这个是用在太庙上的，然后后来就随意用在了咱们良心殿。然后这是用在那个文化殿的，但是后来也用到了，就是有可能他那个就是修文华的时候，他可能烧了一批，然后没用完，它存在了库房里头。
They've discovered that most of the tiles bearing inscriptions were installed around 1799, the fourth year of the reign of the Jiaqing Emperor. Why didn't the emperor move into the Hall of Mental Cultivation straight after he ascended the throne? The truth is he wasn't allowed to live in this hall during the first 4 years of his reign. Jiaqing inherited the throne from his father in 1796, but the retired Qianlong emperor didn't retreat to the pre-built lavish quarters. To enjoy some peace and quiet, as he publicly proclaimed, reluctant to let go of the dominant power he had enjoyed for so long, the former emperor continued to live in the hall and exerted considerable authority. For more than 3 years, the new emperor lived with depression under his father's shadow. Things changed following the death of the Qianlong emperor in 1799. Finally taking things into his own hands, Jia Qing arrested He Shen, his father's favorite official, and redecorated the hall to his liking after he moved in. The sheer number of inscriptions Zhang Dian has copied is the 40-year-old emperor's expression of triumph. A column inside the wall of the West Hall is causing problems for the restorers. An initial examination shows that the inside of this column has severely rotted. To replace it, the restorers will have to tear down the entire wall, which could put the whole building at risk. Zhang Dian and her colleagues are facing one of the major challenges in the restoration of old buildings.
你看这个，
我看
它这个基本上是有2公分，
估计这个柱子保住的可能性不是太大，
这个也是。
估计好不到哪儿去。我这么看，
尽量保呗，能保一段儿就。
来，咱得从这个门进。
哦，从这小门是吧？哎，独立门。
Wood, like all organic materials, will rot over time, and it tends to rot from the inside out. Is there a way to deal with this problem? The restorers invite an expert over to discuss possible solutions.
它好像就是里边这剩下筋了，里边就变成这种粉末状的，是吧？
应当
就是说过去啊，凡是这个来一批木料里边带点斜纹的，没看它立着没事，它立住顶前筋呢。是，你梁不行，梁带斜裂的不行，领条带斜的也不行，所以我们很多柱子里面大部分就是带斜裂的比较多。
是吧？
但是刚一开始啊，从表面带一些斜柳。
Carpenters in ancient China were picky about the materials they used, but they were not wasteful. Wooden timbers with diagonal cracks were not good enough to be used as roof beams, but they could be made into columns supporting the roof. If you're familiar enough with this ancient building, you can hear the timbers talking to you in whispers and communicate with them. Li Yongge, one of the best carpenters of his generation, has participated in almost all the major renovation projects conducted in the Forbidden City since the 1980s, including the restoration of the Hall of Mental Cultivation 30 years ago. He is one of a handful of wood whisperers among Chinese carpenters.
对，那这种石构件我们都不知道是用来干什么，包括那种，这有好。
The Department of Construction Management holds senior craftsmen and their expertise in high regard, and often invites them back to hear their suggestions on a variety of renovation projects.
然后您看这一区的地面，咱们就80年的时候动过吗？就这一块后面的这个。
挖不过。
也挖不过。
对，过去这院里边，你看房上也修了，房下也修了，对吧？就是人家过去说的那个叫是，干千年湿万年，不湿不干就半年。其实就是一沤，慢慢就坏了。 你看，你手摸这个啊，不够100年以上是出现不了这种痕迹的，就是它够一定时间以后，它的这个木筋，它一般不会塌陷，然后中间这部分就是肉，它塌陷。你看那个，越靠下边可能是它这个风吹啊，可能是比较多，它塌陷的越厉害。你看这位置，它都有一些塌陷。
Footage like this shot by the department will serve as a valuable reference for future restorers. Li Yongge and his predecessors have been repairing and maintaining this ancient palace since the 1920s. Mr. Li worked here as a carpenter for more than 40 years.
像这种情况，我们发现问题了，肯定我们要修一修，不退去。
He is now imparting his knowledge and skills to the young generation. This is how Chinese woodworking techniques have been passed down. The current restorers are standing on the shoulders of their seniors.
走了，同志们，不走关门了啊！你们用好关门。
A team of experts from the Beijing Forestry University have been invited over by the department to conduct further examinations of the rotten wooden column using professional equipment. This allows the restorers to measure the extent of the rotting in the cross-section of the column with minimal damage and record the results in an oscillogram. It's pretty much like giving the column a CT scan.
这里脆不好，完了，接着打，接着打，对，接着打，等让你停再停。哎呀。
The first couple of oscillograms indicate that the column is probably completely rotten and needs to be replaced.
这个好像是哇，这一段
9公分，
6开始，
将近10公分，
我想要一个这个数据，就是这个方子对2.7的顺地方，它再顺着再来。
The team decides to extract another sample at a higher position at the request of Zhang Dian.
希望可以保住哪怕一部分呢，就尽量能够那个。
行了，可以了。
你看，
这一块看的话，
还可以的。
The result shows that the upper half of the column is relatively strong, and the restorers decide to only replace the lower half. The upper half, together with all the marks time has engraved on its surface, will remain as part of this historic building.
这就是原来修的时候找一棵木材凑合着上，这个应该有多少年了？应该有100多年了吧？这100多年之后再修，麻烦就来了。当时要不用它，用一棵好的，可能就不会出现这种问题。
As the weather is getting colder, the department decide to get the replacement ready and postpone the repair work until the next spring, when the weather will be more favourable. The gate of divine prowess guards the entrance to the hall. Every morning, restorers walk through the gate and begin their day's work.
你像这根也是，它有一根钉子打折了在这儿。然后钉子是老孔进去的。
Now that the case of the column is not a pressing issue, restoration of other parts of the hall can continue. Zhang Dian and her colleagues are writing a medical record of this palatial complex by measuring it and recording their findings.
看我的手套已经牺牲了，如果这是我的肉，是不是就已经滑滑的？
我来之前我说给你打电话，我说我告诉你我过来一趟，我照一下那后边那雨单。 啊，
杨老师他们在底下呢，他们我看不见你，
您贵姓？
姓王国民，做彩画。
您不是原来？
我原来我在2队了，2队。
就在2队。
1队待了2年。
都管理人才。
你在工地干活。
牺牲掉了。 这还要拍吗？别拍了，别拍了，别拍了，都不敢来实习了。
你像那个我们今天做的那个是船子的分形分式，22是第2种。 如果是一批做出来的船子的话，它的这个做法应该都是一样的，所以我们会综合这些各种细节，然后再结合文献、结合图档，分析它的这个修缮，就是一个建筑的成长史。
More than 300 years ago, a foreigner who shared the same passion for palatial architecture left a valuable written record for us. In 1690, French missionary Jean-François Gerbillon was invited to the palace to give math lessons to the Kangxi Emperor. Fascinated by the scene of craftsmen working at the Hall of Mental Cultivation, he wrote in his diary that, "We were led to a place called the Hall of Mental Cultivation, where some of the most accomplished craftsmen, including lacquer painting artists, carpenters, goldsmiths and bronzesmiths, were busy working." Gerbillon also noticed that the Kangxi Emperor showed a keen interest in these crafts and enjoyed watching the craftsmen work from time to time.
去拿咱们的帽子。
不是，
来的时候它是这块这个透风砖嘛，它是就是在这个上面。
它这个可以拿出来。
破坏了蜘蛛。
Hollow bricks were an ingenious invention of the masons in ancient China. The openings in the bricks allow air to travel in, which helps keep the wooden columns within dry and slows down the rotting process. Two years ago, restorers made an unexpected discovery behind a hollow brick in the West Hall. In January 2019, people happened upon a century-old program when they were examining the hollow bricks. It outlined the scheduled performances and the performers during one of the New Year's celebrations held in the palace in the mid-late Qing dynasty and provides valuable insight into the opera performances in the Qing court.
所以当时我们也是一方面是清理，一方面我们也是在那个探查这个柱根的情况，然后打开以后，在一堆尘土当中有两个卷成一个小系统的那个黄色的一个小卷轴子，大概也就这么长吧，是吧？
可能就是手里边拿累了，没说那个细折已经养完细了没用了，就从这儿就给塞里边去了呗。这一塞就是这100多年。这个就跟那个漂流瓶那作用似的，漂流瓶是扔海里边去了，谁捞上来谁看。就这个就是将来谁打开了谁看，也可能几十年、上百年了，就是啊。
Other parts of the Forbidden City are also undergoing examination and restoration.
看了吗？马上就要掉下来，这可能是一个比较急的事儿。还可以，
中间没问题，两边
这个应该给它做了，然后这个
The architecture forms the most important exhibit in the Palace Museum. People from the Department of Architectural Heritage are patrolling the palace, recording all the damage, big and small, that has been inflicted on the buildings and organising renovations accordingly.
就是每年要查一次，对，查到这么多的点位啊。今年电子系统这一块是查了6000多个点，6200多个点，然后就是这么大量的这个检测的这个点位的，之前都是拿那个大的 A3 纸啊，然后再去人工的记，然后就现在相当于把这个所有的这些内容信息全都给它电子化，然后用那个 Pad 端，我们手持就可以现场记录了。这边缺的件儿两边仙人儿，对，仙人也缺呢，像2个、4个，加上那个门4，那门也没有。还有上边那个正脊那块儿吧，那儿也缺一块儿。
对，盖基瓦也缺一块。你看兽脚它不规则的还是挺多的，你看像这个兽脚不也是吗？ 越是这样的地儿越好。
怕磕着碰着。
对对对对。
这俩
我
脑袋。
想拿一个人像拍一下。
人像，太没意思。这个天儿冷了，多穿点。
对。
让先人冲镜头笑一个。
就转过去，小鹿就这样。
生气了。
Their last stop is an area that is off limits to the public, where a mysterious building stands. Chi Fei and her colleagues will restart a renovation project that was called off due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Hall of Supreme Deity was where royalty held Taoist rituals and worshipped the Supreme Deity, commonly known as the Jade Emperor, during the Ming and Qing dynasties. The Xianfeng Emperor of the Qing dynasty prayed for snow here. The gate of supremacy leading straight to the main hall is succumbing to the power of time and becoming increasingly fragile.
其实这大多数还是在的。
对，但有。
这多久没到这儿来？
就疫情之间就没进来。
对。
疫情有多长，他们就在这儿有多久。
他们在冷宫里。
我下去。
The major problem of the gate lies in this rotten beam. Wood, one of the most widely used materials in traditional Chinese architecture, often falls victim to lightning strikes, dampness, insects, and other enemies.
"还有光泽感。
这个这么个香法，也柏树更好，更香。柏树是吧？放口袋了。这是抱下来的。
多帮我拿一个。
Rotten wood components often put restorers in a dilemma. New wood is more tensile and can shoulder more weight, but restorers also want to keep the originality of historic buildings as much as possible. It's later decided that they'll keep the intact part of the beam and replace the rest with new wooden planks. The beam is now repaired and will continue to support the glazed decorations on top. The date left on the planks will serve as a technical clue for future restorers, in case the beam will ever have to be repaired again, which Chi Fei hopes will never happen.
就是没有问题就一定不用动，有问题就一定会动，就让它封存在里头吧。
This beam, taken down from the Hall of Mental Cultivation, is so severely damaged that the restorers have no choice but to replace it with a new one. Once placed at the highest point of the main hall, this beam was one of the largest structural timbers that provided primary support for the roof of the building, known as the ridge cap. Palatial architects designed lines of defence to prevent the roof from leaking. Apart from the ridges and overlapping roof tiles that are prominently displayed, a thick layer of sticky underlayment is hidden underneath. Supported by a lattice-like wooden structure, connecting sheathing, rafters and crossbeams. The rafters are then connected to the highest wooden component of the whole framing, the ridge cap. This multi-layered and overlapping structure makes the whole building waterproof. The massive construction of the palatial buildings used up almost all the finest Phoebe Zenon wood across China. It takes hundreds of years for this species of tree to reach adulthood, and emperors in the Qing dynasty, failing to find usable Phoebe Zenon wood, had to make do with less valuable wood to renovate the Forbidden City. The ridge cap of the Hall of Mental Cultivation was replaced with one made from pine wood during the Qing dynasty. The restorers want to find a substitute that is of exactly the same species and texture. A number of lumber yards in the outer suburbs of Beijing have been providing wood for the palace since the Qing dynasty. This chosen pine wood timber has been roughly processed and will be transported to the palace tonight. Mr. Meng, the driver, will have to first drive to the southern part of Beijing and then wait until 11 p.m, when trucks are allowed to enter the inner city and deliver the timber to its destination after a 30-minute drive. After unloading the timber along with some other planks, Mr. Meng will drive off from the Gate of Divine Prowess and head home. It's been an ordinary day for him, but the timber he's transporting will support the roof of the Hall of Mental Cultivation for another century. Art is timeless, and artworks created centuries ago are still appreciated by people today. The coloured paintings on the ridge beams of the hall dating back to the Ming Dynasty are revealed for the first time during the renovation work. Some people believe this was where the Jiajing Emperor, a devoted follower of Taoism, held religious rituals. The first emperor to use the hall as a personal residence is believed to be the Wanli Emperor of the Ming Dynasty. He locked himself in there and barely went out for nearly 30 years. The book 1587, A Year of No Significance, The Ming Dynasty in Decline, records the dramatic changes China went through when it was ruled by a man who hated to leave his chamber. What had the emperor been doing in this room during the years he ignored state affairs? Historians are still debating the answer. Architectural experts, on the other hand, know exactly how the ridge caps of this hall were arranged and connected. Buildings are much easier to understand than people. The supporting ridge caps on top of the ridge beam are interlocked with dovetail joints, which are used due to their resistance to being pulled apart. United as a whole, the ridge caps strengthen the timber framing of the roof and make it more stable. The manufacture and installation of ridge caps still has to be done by hand. For thousands of years, carpenters have sweated over these huge wooden components without the help of modern cranes. piecing them together into spectacular palaces.
挺好，下不去了。行，那我先弄出来。好嘞。
After the rafters are carefully reinstalled, workers start to fix other wooden components with the spare nails. The coloured paintings are hidden again. They'll probably only see the light of day during the next restoration. It's Wang Hui's turn to work the night shift. The weather is getting colder, and the renovation work is about to come to a halt.
这些小兽有时候做的挺可爱的。对。这个琉璃釉了，就是什么？你看这个是不是像小恐龙？是吧？带着脚。对，你看特别憨，特别可爱，是吧？哎，那个加油！加油！
哎，王处。
走了，车到了啊。
好了，我开门。
The Forbidden City at night is full of mystery in the eyes of the public. It's a place which allows one's imagination to run wild.
原先在第一部这儿办过一阵工嘛，他说有一次他出去的晚啊，也就9点来钟吧。他说他约我说9点我约什么呀？我说真的，我是真不了。9点晚上9点。
如果今天有月亮，这儿又没灯，这儿是一片惨白，
那是挺好。
是给你心里造成压力而已。但是说你真是说什么灵异事件没有？
其实都是心理作用。
They may be disappointed to know that the palace is often full of hustle and bustle at night. The staff are sometimes busier at night than during the day. The palace has witnessed a lot of nights like this over the years.
这个保安要把整个的车都要检查了。现在就等于这个车。 他们已经检查完了，进去已经跟我办完交接了。我进去要负责他们的安全了，每天晚上都很繁忙，这里边所有的运输全部指着晚上，包括运水的、运食品的啊。
Tonight, 2 dump trucks are heading to the palace to collect the construction waste and transport it out of Beijing. The site has been tidied up by the next morning, and the palace is bathed in sunlight, ready to receive visitors. Zhang Dian and her colleagues need to reinstall the roof tiles before winter arrives, and then the renovation work will come to a stop.
这个瓦呀，应该比这个暴沙的年代还要远。这是从北边拿过来的。是。一是看啊，它这个龙的这个纹饰，我们说你看它，比较古丽啊。虽然它也爆了啊，这个龙鳞呢，你看啊，也都给爆了釉了，但是它这个形状看还是比较早的。那个
长它也不显。
不行就稍微收
啊，然后也是一个机缘巧合吧，接触了这，就是说原先是我爸，他就在干这古建，他都干了有10年20年。是不是下次你提前给我说说你想问什么，我写个词儿，我也好应付。
With the wooden framing repaired and the inscriptions copied and stored, the roof tiles which were kept intact are being put back in their original places. The inscriptions on the back of the tiles are hidden from sight again.
其实你说这个瓦它也有年头了，我认为在这儿坏了吧，它也不是什么坏事，很次。
怎么看出来呢？
它这个，你看啊。 这声音它也是比较次，你看，从重量上，它这个使得这个杆口不是太好，你看，我估计这个可能也是在清朝的时候，应该说经济不是太好的时候。
The tiles and bricks that failed to survive this journey will be stored in a well-kept warehouse. Made from clay fired in a kiln, these tiles have shielded people from wind and rain. The glazed golden roof tiles have been protecting the wooden roof and eaves underneath, brightening up the whole palace complex. To find replacements of the finest quality, the Department of Construction Management has visited workshops across China where traditional tile glazing techniques are still used. 300 kilometers away, a game of fire and clay is ongoing. The clay is crafted into tiles before being hardened by fire. Shanxi was famous for producing fine glazed artifacts during the Ming Dynasty. The industry was dominated by 3 families, all who participated in the construction of the Forbidden City. However, this workshop from Shuozhou inherited their glazing techniques from Beijing. A factory that only received orders from the palace was set up in the Mentogo district in Beijing during the Yuan dynasty. Many of the glazed works found in the palace were produced here during the Ming and Qing dynasties. They become the youngest roof tiles on the Hall of Mental Cultivation, ready to stand up to the wind and rain.
这俩一套，我这么大式样，这是拿这样。
这个要单烧，这不能放溜，不能平着烧，平着烧它粘，这就得立着烧。出了瓦，拿模具抠出它来，还得抹光，抹完了再从瓦上粘。它分3个部位去，这个。
Finely glazed roof charms are found on traditional Chinese buildings. Few people know the names of these animal statues, although a famous Chinese idiom, Wuji Liu Shou, was inspired by them, describing people who like to slack off. Truth be told, each one of them is tasked with a unique mission. Qi Wen protects against fires. The seahorse represents good luck. the lion symbolizes strength, and Shiji stands for justice. Together, these beasts watch over the ancient palace day and night. Now that the renovations on the roof of the hall are finished, the canopy erected more than 500 days ago can finally be removed. The roof tiles and roof charms must have been waiting for this day, when they can finally feel the sunshine and wind again. According to the written records, among all the emperors who resided in this palace, only Puyi, the last emperor of China, went up to the roofs. For 600 years, the ones who frequented the roofs were the generations of craftsmen.
建筑就是活的呀，包括它那信息，你要是在这个里边工作时间长了，你就能读懂它那个信息啊。说哪怕1个小时1个瓦当，都是一个文物啊。
或者说，它跟国博跟首博不一样的，不就是因为它有，就是这个体量的这些古建筑，只有把这些材料都可以定位回它在历史当中的那个位置，它才可以解决更多的问题。
Constructed 600 years ago, the Forbidden City is still standing today. It has been visited by the most accomplished craftsmen from all over China, who came to repair and maintain this ancient palace complex. The palace is proof of their craftsmanship and keeps attracting young restorers to this day. The seemingly immortal Forbidden City has witnessed an endless cycle of the new replacing the old, lasting bonds between objects and mankind, and an undying passion for the beauty of palatial architecture.
《提的这3件文物是我们是认为看的是工艺，
宗旨是最小干预、最大限度保留历史信息。故宫的建筑里头，哪个是用金量最多的建筑？
它那种大气象，无法比喻的。
说没有一个建筑，它就是一个单纯的时代。